Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We do have some background noise. I do apologize. I'm waiting for it to pass. So give me just a second. Okay. Let's get on back to this PowerPoint. Here we go. So thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon for this assessment workshop. We're going to start off by reviewing the question that is up on screen, or the statement. And when it says, I can distinguish between the different types of assessments utilized in Fulton County schools and understand the purpose of each. So with this statement, essentially want you guys to analyze and see, just check in to see where you guys are in terms of how you feel. Do you feel like you would say not at all, very little, somewhat, or to a great extent? Okay, is this better to hear me? Okay. Alrighty. So today we're going to be reviewing understanding assessments. So what do you all think of when you think about an assessment? For some of us, we think paper and pencil formal assessment that we took on the Scantron or bubble sheets. That is still one form of assessment that we sometimes do see in the schools. However, assessments actually look a lot of different ways. It can also look like a test that's taken on a computer, and sometimes these computer tests adapt to students' responses. The assessment can also look like a teacher sitting with a student and listening to them read. Assessment can be a teacher asking students to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a sideways thumb to communicate how well they understand the concept that's being taught. Assessment can be walking around in a classroom and taking notes on students as they practice independently. Assessments supports real-time and ongoing feedback in the classroom, and they allow the teacher to tailor instruction to the needs and goals of individual learners. Therefore, as we see, assessments are very important. By the end of our time together, I would like for you all as parents to be able to understand the purpose of assessment, understand the different types of assessment and their uses, distinguish between the various assessments used here in Fulton County Schools, and access additional resources to support you after this session is over. In Georgia, teachers are responsible for teaching your student the state-adopted standards, most often the Georgia Standards of Excellence. This means that a third grade student who attends school here in Fulton County Schools should be taught the same standards as a third grade student in Savannah or Macon or anywhere else. Fulton County Schools has defined in our board policy 3 main categories of assessments. Think as 3 big buckets into which different assessments fall. We're going to start off by talking about the first category, screening, diagnostic, and progress monitoring assessments. Fulton County Schools uses universal screening assessments. These assessments are given to all students for screening of academic strengths and weaknesses. Diagnostic assessments help to determine a student's overall academic performance level. Progress monitoring assessments are given to students who are receiving additional interventions to support student learning. So why is it that we use universal screening and diagnostic assessments? These assessments that help determine a student's overall academic performance level, or these are assessments. New in the 2021 to 2022 school year, we use MAP for students in grades 9 through 12. Each of these are computer adaptive assessments, meaning that as your student gets questions right, the test adapts and provides harder questions. As the student misses a question, the test adapts to provide easier questions. And because of this, the students will only get about 50% of their questions correct. And this is important for you and the students to know. They aren't supposed to get all the questions right. This test helps to determine what students know and what they don't know yet. And this in turn helps teachers pinpoint the specific learning needs of your student. And it says that it's administered up to 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and in the spring. Progress monitoring assessments are used specifically for students who are receiving academic interventions to support their learning. In Fulton County Schools, we use FastBridge as a progress monitoring assessments for grades K through 12. If you have any questions so far, please drop them in the Padlet that's displayed here at the QR code, and this way we will be able to answer your questions all in unison. So I'm going to leave this up for a couple of seconds. It looks like we have a couple parents coming in. So if you have any questions about this first block that we just went over, go ahead and drop them in the Padlet. And then I will be getting with Ms. Newell to answer all of your questions. All right, so moving on, we're going to look at the second category, standards-based assessments. These standard-based assessments are any assessment that are focused on monitoring student progress towards mastery of the standards that are being taught. They can be given before, during, or after instruction. Here you can see some of the types of standards-based assessments. We have pre-assessments, formative assessments, unit or summative assessments, benchmark assessments, authentic assessments, and recovery assessments. Pre-assessments are a type of standards-based assessments and are assessments that are given before the start of an instructional cycle. These are designed to measure a student's prior knowledge and skills. This helps the teacher to plan their instruction in response to students' needs. Pre-assessments can be used in all grade or courses and are teacher-driven. Remember, they are given before standards have been introduced, so they are not used to determine a student's grade. Formative assessments are assessments that are given throughout the learning process. They give teachers feedback that inform their instruction and respond to student needs. Formative assessments are assessments that are used for learning purposes. They often don't feel like a test, and it gives the example that teachers asking students questions can be a form of formative assessments. They are figuring out what the student knows and can adjust their instruction based on the student's responses. Now, going into unit or summative assessments, these are the ones that are given at the end of an instructional cycle. Once the teacher has finished teaching a unit, it's important for that teacher to determine if the students have learned the standards that have been taught. Teachers commonly administer unit or summative assessments to students after instruction. Often these feel like more traditional tests. There may be by multiple choice questions, constructed response questions where students have to write a response. Benchmark assessments are another type of assessment within the standards-based assessment category. They are administered periodically or seasonally. Like other standards-based assessments, benchmark assessments are designed to measure students' proficiency on the standards. However, they also serve as predictors of success on standardized criterion-referenced assessments. Now, to answer why, this requires that students engage with real-life problems, issues, or tasks for an audience who cares about or has a stake in what students learn. It enables students to make sense of and apply what they have learned and to establish clear connections between what they have learned in schools and the world in which they live. And these can be used as a grade. Now, recovery assessments are administered throughout a unit to students who have failed to demonstrate mastery of the standards. They cover the standards that the individual student has not mastered, and these can also be used as a grade. So we have gone through the second block, and once again, I'm putting up the Padlet QR code. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop those into the Padlet. And I do see we had a question on our chat, and I'll get back to that as soon as we're done with this presentation. And moving on to the last block. Okay. Here we go. So state and national assessments. State and national assessments can be criterion referenced and or they can be norm referenced. Criterion referenced assessment measures a student's knowledge against a set of criteria that has been predetermined. For example, the Georgia Standards of Excellence state standards. Norm referenced assessments, on the other hand, are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. They are comparing the students' results. Now let's take a look at some of the state and national assessments. Okay. So we have the state assessment that you may be most familiar with is the Georgia Milestones. It is a criterion referenced assessment. You may hear to it referred to as just milestones, the GMAS or EOG for end of grade in elementary and middle school, or EOC, end of course for high school courses. It is designed to evaluate a student's learning at the end of a grade or the course, and it reports whether a student has achieved proficiency on the skills and concepts of the course, and it should not be used as a grade except as required by state law. Okay. Administered on the computer, the students score in 4 categories: beginning, developing, proficient, or advanced. And it provides valuable information about student learning to students, parents, teachers, district staff, state, and community stakeholders. The Milestones is not our only criterion referenced state and national assessment. This slide shows others that may be required. We have the Georgia Alternate Assessment, and it's used for some special education students in lieu of the Georgia Milestones. AP or advanced placement exams are administered to students enrolled in advanced placement courses and may earn students college credit. And why? These assessments are used to evaluate students on broad areas of knowledge. They serve to classify or rank students on a continuum of achievement compared to their peers, and it is not used as a grade. Alrighty, and now we have these that are listed on here. These are some additional norm-referenced assessments given SAT, the PSAT, and ACT assessments. These are the resources that you all can check out if you would like more information on our assessments. We have the assessment plan, the grading and reporting system, and Milestones assessment. Now, returning back to that first statement when we got started, types of assessments. Answering that question and providing information that you can see, not just for the high school level, but if you have students in elementary and middle school. As you see, we covered all of the assessments that all of Fulton County students are required to take. I want to go ahead and throw up our contact information. If you guys have any questions, we have Ms. Gibson's email on here, who is our amazing counselor, and as well as myself. If you all have any questions, please feel free to email us if you do not want to drop them in the Padlet. Does anyone have any questions? I'll check here to start. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I usually always record them and then send them out to you guys. So yes, ma'am, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, and then I'll push it out via Blackboard to you all. Okay. Yeah, we're good on time. You can ask me them now. My first question is, when will the EOC be administered? The end of course, yes, let me pull that up. Give me just a second. So we have a parent here that asked when the end of course. I do have an email from Ms. Moon. Okay. Let me see if I can pull up the email that our testing coordinator gave me. Okay, so for high school, we have American Lit, part 1 on April 25th. And then we have American Literature parts 2 and 3. So I'm assuming they break it up into 2 parts on April 26th. The biology EOC is April 27th. US history EOC is April 28th. And then lastly, algebra 1 EOC is April 29th. And I'll send that information as well with that email so you guys can refer back to it. So it looks like in April. Is that right, Ms. Gibson?
All students in biology are taking that EOC. Most of our freshmen are taking it, but some 10th graders came into 9th grade taking environmental science. So if you have a 10th grader who's in biology, yes.
Oh, is that it for 10th grade?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was a good question.
My second question is 2 parts to my second question. When will they know how, approximately after they take the test, will they know if they pass? And you already have things set up if they didn't pass.
That I'm not sure of.
So for the first part of your question, I don't know the timeline of distribution of results. Usually it's almost like the end of the school year. I've seen usually like the last week or 2 of school. As far as recovery, even though an EOC course requires an end of course assessment, it's 20% of the final grade. So if your student has a strong enough grade that if they fail it, it doesn't get them to fail the course, there'll be no reason for remediation or recovery.
Yeah. I'm just saying if they don't.
Oh, if they don't, okay, so if they do fail it because of the EOC?
Yeah.
Then yeah, so then, so with summer school, May 26th is the deadline for summer school registration, but they're doing on-site registration in June, so that if the scores come late and you find out that your student doesn't have success, you can go on and register. There won't be a cutoff where you can't get into the summer school for recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to register.
Yes. Yep.
I have someone online, Ms. Gibson, that said, hello, how can I access my child's iReady progress thus this far?
So we'll have to ask Ms. Newell about that.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I feel like iReady ends in middle school, but I don't want to speak or misspeak, so Ms. Newell would know.
Okay.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, it ended in middle school. They don't do iReady in high school.
So for Miguel Burns, it appears that the iReady ends in middle school. It doesn't go into high school, to answer that question. Does anyone on our chat have any questions for those that are attending on Teams? No? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for the assessment. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead.
Since I have 10th graders that do all the different skills to like practice tests or to, kind of help in that process in addition to the class. So there are additional like practice tests and that's illuminated, where is that located?
So we either started at ELC boot camp. It started today. They did this Cornell note taking. Our 10th graders are taking SAT prep during that project right now. So they haven't been around with the ELC boot camp that started today. So we make special permission for her to come out of the SAT prep or to do it at a later time to go through the because a lot of our primarily they're thinking most of the freshmen would need it with the biology, the algebra 1, all those things. So we do have a few 10th graders who are in biology because just about all the Southfield schools 9th grade did not take biology because it's so content heavy. So let me figure out what we can do with the workaround, maybe Ms. Juarez, to maybe pull students out because it's only for 45 minutes of their advisement. So she can do half of that and then do the rest for SAT prep. So the only thing she missed today was the Cornell note-taking session. And we had an application on it, but we're doing another group Tuesday next week, so I can try to be sure that she's there for that.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Ms. Julia Hawthorne said, what date does EOC boot camp begins? You said it began today for 9th graders.
Yes.
So Ms. Hawthorne, it began today for 9th graders, and Ms. Gibson was just saying that if you have a 10th grader that you would like for them to participate in that boot camp, you can send her an email and we can make the proper arrangements to have, 9th graders. So then yes, they should have already started today. They started with Cornell note taking, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's Malia, right? Okay, got it.
Awesome questions. All right, I see another person typing another question. You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Hawthorne, for joining us. Okay, looks like the person is not typing anymore. All right, well, if that was all the questions for our assessment workshop, I thank you all again for joining us, and you all have a great day.